Thank you. Thanks very much. So, as I mentioned, today we're here for the case studies from industry leaders in the Futureproof Your Fleet program that we have at Partners in Project Green. We will begin with a little bit of an introduction to this program, and this will be followed by a presentation by Emterra Group and the region of Peel. They will be co-presenting their work with electric vehicles and their fleet and how they've been looking at adopting a new technology. We will then hear from Park and Fly. We will be learning about their experience with compressed natural gas. And we will also follow this up with a question and answer session and some closing remarks and more that we have to offer from Futureproof Your Fleet. But first, I would like to begin with the land acknowledgement. We at TRCA respectfully acknowledge that we are situated on the traditional territories and treaty lands of many First Nations, particularly those of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Métis Nations. The Toronto and Region Conservation Authority really appreciates this opportunity to meet and work here on this territory. Partners in Project Green is a relationship that started between Toronto Pearson Airport and the TRCA. And out of that came a community where we are building private and public partnerships to advance environmental and economic goals in the Greater Toronto area. We offer a suite of programs, events, a lot of informational resources that can help you support your sustainability journey. We have a growing community where we have a number of public and private partners who come together and want to talk about anything sustainability and environmental, circular economy, and goals that will help us meet the net zero goals in the future. More about Future-Proof Your Fleet. So this program is coming from that need to reduce Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. We need to look at how freight transportation is a very significant contributor to these emissions, and having low and zero emission vehicle technologies is an area for improvement. There are lots of opportunities, lots of challenges as we learn more about these new technologies. And with NRCan's support, Partners in Project Green is delivering this program to raise awareness on these different technologies. We have been offering workshops, some case studies that we've compiled and put together, free resources, and a lot of information that goes out through social media. We're hoping that people can come together, network, learn about different technologies in this space for both medium and heavy duty vehicles, and maybe even interact with some of the display vehicles that we have at our workshops. More on that later. And we're talking about 4 key technologies that we've decided to focus on as a part of this program, amongst others. So we look at electric battery, hydrogen, compressed or renewable natural gas, and renewable diesel. And we have a number of partners that have been working with us, delivering these expert-led workshops and providing a lot of information, practical knowledge on how to really go into this transition to a new green fleet. And we've recently launched a resource guide on our hub. I've put in the link there, and we'll be sharing this with all the participants after this webinar. We have some video case studies from businesses in the GTA region that you may want to learn from, to connect with, and we'll be happy to share more through our resource hub. This recording for the webinar will also be shared on this resource hub later, and we will be sharing more details on our final in-person workshop that's coming up in January at the Pearson Airport. Right, so diving into the webinar, our panelists today, here we have Naveed. He's the operations manager for the Peel region at Emterra Group. We have Cynthia. She's the waste planning manager at the Peel region. They will be co-presenting the first workshop presentation. We will then hear from Brent, who's the general manager at Park and Fly in Toronto. So thank you so much. And I will stop sharing to allow Cynthia to share her screen, and Naveed to please begin with their presentation.
Thank you, Ritika. Let me know when you can see the presentation.
Yes, we're all good.
Perfect. Excellent. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be joining you here to share a little bit about our story and our journey in piloting an electric waste collection vehicle in Peel region. So as mentioned, my name is Cynthia Lucar Diaz. I'm the manager of waste planning at Peel Region. And joining me today is Naweed Malik, operations manager for Peel Region at Emterra Group. For a little bit of context, for those who aren't familiar with the region of Peel, we are a local regional government composed of three lower tier municipalities, the city of Brampton, city of Mississauga, and town of Caledon. We service 1.6 million residents in the region. And Emterra is actually one of Peel's waste collection contractors, and they provide waste collection services to over 210,000 homes in the region. And together we're here to share early insights from our pilot. Let's dive in. We undertook this pilot to explore how EVs can reduce emissions in our waste collection services. And of course, for the rest of the pilot, or throughout the pilot, we're going to be gathering data on how well the electric waste collection truck performs, how it compares to the trucks we currently use, which are compressed natural gas, and how EVs can fit into our long-term waste collection plans. We launched the pilot in December 2023, focusing on select areas in the cities of Brampton and Mississauga. And to do this, we partnered with Emterra, who own, operate, and maintain both the electric truck and its charging infrastructure. We've also partnered with the Smart Freight Center to ensure thorough evaluation of the pilot. And they are responsible for conducting the research, the data collection, the analysis, and the reporting for the duration of the pilot. Naweed, why don't you tell them a little bit about our star player?
Awesome. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, let's talk about our star player, the electric waste collection vehicle. So we're using a Mack LRE with a Labrie atomizer. It's an automated side loader. Some of the key features include advanced battery technology, a 376 kilowatt an hour, 536 horsepower peak lithium ion battery, estimated range of 120 kilometers, which is what we expect to be suitable for typical collection routes. We'll confirm this during the pilot. Zero tailpipe emissions from both the greenhouse gases and the local air quality perspective, which is a significant environmental benefit. Noticeably reduced noise levels compared to our current compressed natural gas, or CNG vehicles. Compared to Peel and Emterra's current CNG waste collection vehicles, we anticipate this electric vehicle will offer one, potential operational cost savings over time, two, possibly reduced maintenance needs, and three, improved driver comfort. It's over to you, Cynthia.
Thank you. So on the slide here, you can see a quick glance and some of the highlights of the truck's performance to date. The truck has been in service for a total of 148 days, maybe a little bit more now. And we are seeing that it could handle a full day's work, operating for about 10 hours per day. And this duration is important because it aligns quite well with our typical waste collection shift lengths. Now, on average, the truck is servicing about 1,000 households daily. And we are testing all of our waste streams. So we're collecting garbage, we're collecting recycling, and we're collecting organics. And depending on the type of material that we are collecting, the truck can collect up to 23 tons per day. Now, I should mention that due to the size and weight of the battery, um, we have two big gray packs, one right behind the cab and one on the other side of the truck that in total house four batteries. As a result of those two, as a result of those batteries, our truck's collection capacity is actually 20% less than our current compressed natural gas waste collection trucks. And we've noticed that the battery is performing well and best when collecting heavier loads, such as garbage and organics. We're seeing that recycling uses up much more battery due to the need to compact the material. Now, why don't you tell them about our charging infrastructure?
Yes, awesome. All right, so let's look at some of the more technical operational data. So for the charging and the infrastructure requirements, the vehicle typically starts its day with a 99% charge, which is excellent. At the end of the typical shift, the battery charge is down to approximately 14%. Through additional experience with the EV, the drivers feel comfortable enough to use the EV to signal digits for state of charge. The charging cycle takes approximately 4.5 hours to reach full charge. This charging pattern allows for overnight charging without impacting daytime operations. Initially, we charge the vehicle indoors. However, we've moved to outdoor charging until full charge has been reached. This allows us to test the impact on charging time and starting charge, especially considering varying weather conditions. Just some of the battery performance we'll speak on now. The significant drop from 99% to 14% charge over a workday indicates that we're utilizing most of the battery capacity. Our drivers feel comfortable now to use the EV until a state of charge is well below 10%. This suggests that our initial range estimates are accurate for our current collection routes. However, it also highlights the importance of efficient route planning and potentially the need for midday charging for longer or more energy intensive routes. Interestingly, we've noticed that battery usage is less and therefore the battery state of charge is extended during garbage collection compared to recycling collection, as Cynthia had noted. This is due to increased packer usage required to fill the truck during recycling routes, which consumes more energy. We've also noticed that with high temperatures, there is also increased fan activity and about a 4 to 7% rise in battery consumption to maintain cool conditions. The relationship between the energy consumption rate and the ambient temperature will be continued to be monitored to investigate the effect of high temperatures. Now, with that, we can look at the downtime per month as per this next slide. So we'll be looking from December 2023 to October 2024. We've experienced a total of 29 days of downtime. As you can see in the graph, most of the downtime was early in the pilot, and that was due to transmission and battery issues. This can be broken down into 25 days of downtime from December to April and 4 days from May to October, with zero downtime occurred from August to October, as well as the beginning of this month as well. This represents approximately about 20% of total days in service for downtime, which is higher than we'd like to see. These issues are providing valuable insights into the unique maintenance requirements of electric waste collection vehicles. We're working closely with the manufacturer to address these challenges and improve vehicle reliability.
So, some initial observations. After 11 months in operation, we've noticed and learned quite a few things. The first and foremost is that the truck is running reliably and it's quieter. It's actually uh, very, very quiet. We have noticeably reduced noise levels compared to our current CNG trucks, and our residents love this. Our drivers also love it. In fact, they prefer to drive the EV truck instead of our current trucks, mostly because it's an improved operating experience. There's less vibrations in the cab, less in-cab noise, and overall, it's a more comfortable, smoother, and precise operation. Now, our drivers are also getting used to the regenerative braking system, which has helped to extend the battery life during the time on road. And despite our short time in the pilot, we've drawn attention and interest from other municipalities across Canada who are exploring adding electric vehicles to their waste collection fleets.
We can take a look at some of the early lessons learned from the pilot. Our initial deployment focused on a single electric waste collection vehicle to test capabilities. This allows us to gain experience and identify any issues before scaling up. Moreover, having a single electric waste collection vehicle charging on off-peak times allows for less consumption on the power grid. A fleet of electric vehicles would add significant stress onto the power supply. As with any project, we've encountered some challenges and made the necessary adaptations. And that's exactly what the point of this pilot is, to experience challenges, learn from them, and then prepare for scaling. These experiences are invaluable as we continue to refine our approach to driver training and operating electric waste collection vehicles. Some challenges we've encountered include difficulty in procuring the electric waste collection vehicle due to supply chain impacts resulting from the pandemic, as well as pre-delivery inspections where some issues related to the battery were discovered at the factory. Data integration of various systems on the vehicle is proving more complex than anticipated. At first, it was a struggle to keep the EV truck on the road for more than 6 to 7 hours, and this caused a few issues. One was the lack of sufficient driver training and knowledge of the vehicle's regenerative braking system and its capabilities. The regenerative braking system was the first of its kind to operate at a vehicle in the Peel yard. Mac was brought in for a training session with our driver to assist on how to efficiently use the braking system to its most potential. Another issue that increased downtime during the first 3 months of the pilot were some transmission issues and over-the-air software program updates. Some of the adaptations that we had to make include additional driver experience and training from ACT helped us extend the working day and the productivity of the EV. Drivers could use the regenerative braking to add up to 20% additional energy to the battery throughout the day. Excuse me. We learned that highway driving was significantly draining the battery, causing the hours of operation to fall between 6 to 7 hours a day. Changes to routes were made to significantly reduce highway driving to increase street driving, which activates the regenerative braking system to its full capabilities. By doing this, the hours of operation moved to 10 to 12 hours a day from 6 to 7 hours previously. And also, this was the first time the dealer had to service EVs, so there was a learning curve for them as well. Behind each truck is a supply chain that supports it. And when implementing new technology, the whole supply chain goes through an initial transition phase. Now we'll speak on some of the early successes that we've had as well. So our initial deployment focused on a single electric waste collection vehicle to test capabilities. This allows us to gain experience and identify any issues before scaling up. We have been more vocal with the local dealer and OEM on providing more training and resources and support. Using a diesel or CNG truck is very different than using an electric vehicle truck, and the level of after-sale support is much higher, especially in the early stages. The dealer and OEM have been very responsive. Once the EV truck made it onto the road and was consistently collecting material, it's proven to be reliable and able to complete assigned routes for the most part. As mentioned earlier, drivers report a positive experience resulting in improved driver satisfaction, which may lead to help with retention efforts as well. The causes of any downtime we've experienced have been analyzed, and we've implemented mitigation strategies to minimize future disruptions, including a proactive maintenance approach. In fact, there has been a reduction in maintenance activities that we normally and regularly see that are required for diesel or CNG vehicles, such as filter repair or replacement, or oil changes, resulting in extra time savings. And finally, we have not required midday charging despite working 10 to 12 hours a day. We had a mild winter, so we'll be paying close attention to how ambient temperatures impact the vehicle's productivity and energy efficiency.
So this pilot is really about figuring out how we can make waste collection better for everyone, for our drivers, for our residents, for our community and our environment. Looking ahead, we still have some questions that we want to answer. We want to know, how does it perform over the long run? Looking at energy consumption patterns and operational efficiency. We want to know, how does it handle in different seasons? We are seeing firsthand how unpredictable our climate is these days. We also want to know, how does it integrate with Emterra's day-to-day operations? How is the charging infrastructure um, handling itself over time? And what are the demands on the grid? We also want to know, what's the real environmental impact? And this one is a big one for us. We need solid data on emissions reductions so that we can really move forward. We also want to know, could we expand this to more trucks? And what would it take to see more of these trucks on the streets? And lastly, we want to know, how does this technology fit into our broader sustainability initiatives? One of the other areas that we're considering as part of perhaps a suite of green technology is hydrogen moving forward. So for Emterra, their next term plans are to complete their national fleet assessment to understand decarbonization opportunities across Canada and at home, understanding a pathway and plan while balancing cost, customer demand, and ambition. Overall, gain a hands-on experience in operating this type of technology in trucks. Nothing beats actual operating experience. Learning and adapting through this pilot along with Peel Region, especially in terms of ambient temperature impacts on vehicle and battery performance. And lastly, to learn and adapt through their operations, entirely electric, HD, zero emissions fleet in BC. And with that, that has been our journey so far, and we thank you for your attention. Happy to take any questions you may have. Our contact information is on the slide.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you, Naveed. That was excellent. Lots of learnings, and I loved how it was very clear that it's a preferred mode for the drivers at Emterra. So very happy to hear some of those learnings. I do not see any questions as of now, but if there are any, I will take them at the end of both the presentations. Can I now request Brent to please share screen and his learnings?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's going to fight me on this, but here we go. So can you see my screen?
Not yet.
There we go. Hang on.
We see it now.
Okay. And you probably see the notes, correct?
Yes. Thank you. We see it
There we
perfectly
go.
now. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about our journey today. It has been a journey. I began with Park and Fly about 18 years ago. And I'll talk about the transition we've worked through with our shuttle fleet, both from a growth perspective, as well as transitioning through a couple of different fuel options to where we are today. I'll talk about the transition, about how we did our research and made assessments on our next steps with our fleet planning. Once we decided on our technology, what it took to implement the plan, and then the rollout, and then summarize what our next steps are. So Park and Fly in Canada is the largest, what we call near airport parking operation. We operate in 7 cities across the country and have 12 locations. We have 2 types of service levels. We have a valet parking experience in 4 cities across the country, and we have a self-parking experience in 6 cities across the country. The difference being how we interact with the customer. Being in the valet operation, they come to a central location, leave the vehicle, and register. We shuttle them to the airport. In a self-parking operation, they go park their own vehicle after entering the gate and interacting with the check-in process there, and wait for a shuttle at one of our stops or one of our bus shelters on the lot. And for example, in Toronto, we have 3 self-parking operations and 1 valet operation, and I'll talk later about the number of stops on those routes. The fleet we operate is comprised of a couple of different types of vehicles, with 2 main types. So we have shuttle buses, which are a cutaway bus, and we have been buying the Ford E450 chassis for the better part of the last 18 years, with a period of time where we moved to GM because of diesel availability. And we have 15 service vehicles, which are vans of different sizes, which are used to ferry our own staff to provide customer service levels, and shuttle customer vehicles from one lot to the other. Toronto operates the largest portion of the fleet because we're basically half of the company is the volume is in Toronto because it's the largest airport in the country. So we operate 30 shuttles and 10 of the service vehicles in our fleet. We operate in a somewhat unique environment because of the number of stops and routes we have that are static routes, and they're very short. If you look at the valet route in Toronto, it's actually only a 15-minute from the location to the airport and back, with 4 stops at the airport. The self-parking operations, while they are a bit different, there's a total of 47 stops within our own properties in those 3 properties, plus another 5 stops at the airport. So the shuttles are on a static route continually, because the way we measure our service level is by what we call a stop interval time, and we want to have a guaranteed service level of a maximum of 10 minutes between stop intervals to service the customers. We control our fuel availability by storing and dispensing fuel in bulk for our fleet on our properties. And the reason we do that is because we're 24/7, we can't be reliant on third parties being open or not open on stat holidays and have availability become a challenge, because then we can't service our customers. The duty cycle of the fleet, probably not unlike the duty cycle of a waste collection fleet, is unique in that it only really travels a very short distance for every operating hour of the day. And so normally a fleet, when we look at preventative maintenance planning, a normal fleet would travel about 40 kilometers per engine hour, but our shuttle fleet only does 15. And so there's a lot of considerations about the type of fuel we use and its performance at those in that duty cycle, as well as the preventative maintenance. The first transition we made from diesel was from diesel to gasoline, and that happened in 2016. And it was primarily due to the fact that the diesel particulate filter emission control systems that they introduced in the mid 2010s were problematic with our duty cycle. We didn't drive fast enough for the filters to regenerate, and so we had to develop this whole program of manual regeneration of the diesel particulate filters. Otherwise they would clog and the unit would fail. The other problem that began to occur around 2016 was the lack of availability of diesel-powered cutaway chassis. GM was the only manufacturer at that time. Ford never migrated. Once they lost the 6-liter diesel, they never put another diesel power plant into a cutaway chassis. And as you can see, the way our bus is designed, it requires that type of chassis. So for those reasons, we started to look to convert to gasoline-powered buses. The unfortunate outcome of that is it increased our operating costs quite significantly by about 15%. At that point, due to those increased costs to operate the gas buses and the corporate mandate to pursue sustainability goals, where it was operationally feasible, we started to explore alternative fuel options for our shuttle fleet operations in Toronto. In 2017, I guess with the assistance of Enbridge, we were invited to attend some meetings hosted by Enbridge and Environment Canada, and we started exploring the use of gaseous fuels as an opportunity to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But any project to convert would have to meet a couple of criteria. First of all, we would need to be able to control the fuel availability through on-site fueling. We could not depend on third-party availability because gaseous fuels are even less available than gasoline itself. And the total cost of the project could not increase our fuel-related operating expenses. So we looked at propane and we looked at CNG, and both were evaluated using a couple of criteria. One was which one was more readily available, which, if any, was less costly overall, and which can support on-site fueling and at what cost. So step one was to determine how to secure on-site fueling and storage. We looked at propane and we began discussions with EdPro, and they agreed to install storage tanks on site at the location where we currently have the maintenance facilities for our fleet. From CNG perspective, Enbridge designed a facility that would be built on one of our properties, because we own multiple lots in Mississauga, by them to compress, store, and dispense fuel that would be supplied by the utilities gas lines. And the cost of the facility would be borne by Park and Fly in the form of a monthly rental and maintenance fees. Results of the comparison favored the CNG option because the availability to store propane on site was limited to 3 days worth of fuel, primarily due to municipal regulations that limited the sizes of the tanks that we could house on any one property, whereas none of those limitations existed for CNG since the feed is available 24/7. The second step was to compare the cost of operating the fleet using gas versus dual fuel CNG, and to determine if it was feasible to transition from a cost perspective to transition to this alternative fuel. So we did a full costing using a cash flow analysis comparing gas only to CNG gas dual fuel. When we evaluated CNG, we also included any conversion costs from gasoline to dual fuel, as well as the sunk costs of the filling station itself and the maintenance costs. Purely because of the difference of the cost of gasoline to CNG, the dual fuel scenario actually presented us with an opportunity to reduce our cost by 21%, all while reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So it was really a no-brainer at that point. We decided to move forward. The company bought off on the scenario, and it was something we planned to do in a 24-month period. And we began the process of converting the shuttle bus fleet in 2018 in preparation for the fueling station to come online, and we would have the buses readily available to use it. What we did was, for the implementation, was the first step was to get a timeline in place with Enbridge and their contracted team for the delivery of the actual fueling station itself. The permits were in place with Mississauga in 2019, and construction began. Step two was to plan the installation of the conversion kits, and because we have a 42-month cycling period for our buses, we turn them over every about 4 years for a variety of reasons. We went back and converted any bus that had already had 18 months in service, And then we anticipated bringing the other ones on with our cycling plan over the following 2 years. So at the end of 3 years, we would have 100% of our fleet converted to dual fuel. Step 3 was the training process, because we would have to train our drivers on fueling the buses on their own at this fueling station. And there was a TSSA requirement to have the drivers properly trained to utilize the fueling station. Secondly, we had our in-house mechanics trained by the service team at Enbridge, who helped us understand the different procedures we had to put in place to bring a dual fuel unit into the shop for service and make it safe. So the CNG fueling station was scheduled to start operation in June of 2020. Well, we all know what happened then. So the travel industry, which we are ultimately dependent upon, ceased operations in April of 2020. And so did much of the construction industry for a period of time, except for emergency or required construction. That really only started to come back. So Park and Fly and the travel industry really only started to resume activity about mid-2021. And construction was also resumed on the filling station at that point in time. However, we encountered a multitude of supply chain issues and a backlog of the electric utility, Electra, which further delayed the opening of the fueling station. So the fueling station finally opened in July of 2023. The other supply chain issue we had was the delay of manufacturing of our cycling plant. So we had the older buses that had been converted pre-pandemic. All of our new buses, we had a cycling total of 34 units ordered in a period of 2 years, over a period of 2 years, that actually only landed together 6 months. So because the manufacturer was delayed in manufacturing them. And so we finally received our last cycled unit, and it became 100% dual fuel in May of 2024. We've looked at the past 5 months of operations and learnings we've taken from it, the data that we've looked at. We had initial concerns from the drivers with the fueling process. It was new. They didn't embrace the change, but the operation of the vehicle itself is really no different than a gasoline powered vehicle. They have adapted, and they've adopted or they've become comfortable with their ability to fuel the vehicle safely, and we don't have that resistance anymore. We did save a lot of time, because when we were using gasoline, we had a limitation. We only had 100,000 liters of fuel on site. And so we were ordering fuel at a pace of about a couple of loads a week. And just the tracking of all that was administratively burdensome, and that has all gone away, because all we're doing now is paying a monthly gas bill from Enbridge. Our monthly fuel savings are actually trending low, sorry, that's wrong. They're trending higher than the original estimate of 21%. So we're seeing closer to about 30% reduced costs in fuel just because we converted to dual fuel CNG. We will be converting our 4 transit wagons later on this year, when the new ones are delivered in February, because they do operate 24/7 as well, to transport the valet attendants between our valet parking and storage lots. And I guess in closing, we have now begun, as of about 60 days ago, to evaluate 100% battery electric buses, which we will begin to prototype and test in our operations in 2026. And that's it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Brent. That was what a journey, like with the delays, with the pandemic in between. Very fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all of your learnings with us. I have a question that has come into the chat from our participants. This is from Aktham, and we are looking at Emterra's model, and they want to know more about the capacity of e-vehicles and the charging stations, and is the result waste heat being used for other applications?
Okay, so I can speak on that. So, just for the pilot project for year to date, just kind of on some of the consumption that we've had for our fuel for the EV. So we're looking about 43,700 kilowatts an hour that we've actually consumed for charging of the vehicle. So again, as we did mention in the presentation. It's a mobile charger that we do have that allows us flexibility to do indoor outdoor charging for our vehicle. I do need a little clarification on waste heat. Now, are you referring to the actual heat of the mobile charger and the results of that? If you can just give me a little clarification on the waste heat portion of the question.
Aktham, if you'd like to. Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, just my concern about the waste heat of the e-chargers for the e-vehicles, actually, because as I'm understanding, it's excessive waste heat. So that's why I'm asking, are you using this heat for other application or not?
So just to clarify, are you referring to the actual vehicle itself or to the charge?
No, the charger.
Oh, okay. So during our pilot project, we're looking at all sorts of things with our charger, but as of right now, any waste heat for other applications, we are not using at this time. However, with that being said, with our charging mobile charger, we are looking at all different facets and type of information to gather during the pilot, and seeing as we're just coming up to the 1 year mark, we're able to kind of take a look and see where we're at on some of our data and analytics for our charging station. And for the next year, we'll be, because the pilot is going for more than 2 years, we'll be referring to year-over-year data, trying to examine it a little bit further on what some of the cause and effects are. So because it's a pilot, it's a little bit different data gathering phase that I guess you want to kind of say. But in terms of other applications related to the charger, it's solely for the EV truck at this time. I hope that answers
Okay,
the
that's
question.
great. Yeah. That's yes. As far as it's so far a pilot, so and there is no clear data available right now. But however, actually, I'm from background and in the company that we are in charge for to use the waste heat, and especially from the vehicle charger for another applications. So I will drop my email if you are interested in this to support you in this regard. We are more than happy. Thank you so much, Malik.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that question. We don't have any other questions from the audience, but I had a question for all of you. If you could share maybe one piece of advice for those fleet managers and owners who are looking at different technologies and are still on the fence about it, they don't know what they should look at. What are the top two factors that you would say they should look at? So that's the question for both Brent and Naveed.
I can go first. But yeah, no, absolutely. Just if it's something that you're kind of interested in, I would say do a lot of research. Obviously, it's very new. The world that we're entering into the electric vehicle. I'm speaking from more so from our electric side, as that's the journey we're kind of on right now. But absolutely, I would definitely say find a great partner to work with who has similar goals to you, who are have objectives that are similar and aligned to your company's kind of objectives and goals, and pair up and team with them to see what information, what things are available currently that are able to help you on your journey, in particular with electric vehicles. A lot of companies are now focusing their energy to electric vehicles, obviously because there's so much government influence and uh, a lot of information being passed. And the issue too also is there's information coming out every day on so you got to keep relevant and new and up to date on everything. So kind of aligning yourself with a team effort will really be beneficial to not only yourself but the partners you pair with. And it kind of gives you more of a streamlined look on where things are going, right?
Thank you. That's an excellent overview. Yes, Brent.
Sure. I guess my advice is similar to Naweed's in two different directions. For anybody who is limited, as I was mentioning earlier before the presentation, limited to only one technology because of the availability of, based on the type of vehicle you operate, you may or may not have the ability to source an electric vehicle. So if you are looking for a gaseous fuel option as an opportunity to reduce emissions, then again, a good partner is your best option to help you answer a lot of the questions that their expertise helps you with that we as fleet operators really aren't well versed in. And Enbridge was very, very instrumental in our conversion to CNG. From EV standpoint, we do have actually quite a bit of experience with EV charging infrastructure because we've hosted EV charging at our valet sites since 2014, believe it or not. And we've been building that infrastructure slowly because the demand, almost 5% of our valet customers now require a charge while they're staying at our site because our average length of stay is 8 days. And our average customer drives from a long distance. And so if they bring their EV, they don't have a lot of opportunities around the airport to charge the vehicle. We've been ramping up our research, if you will, on what it's going to take to be prepared for this. And we have engaged a partner who is part of an electric utility to help us build our strategic direction across the country. And that is one of the key components you need to consider if you're considering EV infrastructure as well, is do you have the necessary power to power your units from the grid? We know today that we are maxed out in all four valley cities in Canada in terms of EV chargers, and we are working with the utilities at this point to try and gain some share of a new capacity that's coming on stream in order to fuel our EV charging requirements. And then, as you know, we are now looking at EV bus because as recent as last June, we were finally introduced to a vehicle that is compatible with our operating requirements, and we started looking at that as well, and quite excited about it because we are pretty certain we're going to be piloting EV buses in 2026.
Wow, that is amazing. Good to know. Thank you so much for sharing your pearls of wisdom. Cynthia, if there's anything at all that you'd like to add from your experience, like a bird's eye view, what's happening in this space, we would be happy to hear from you as well.
I think just from the pilot, one of the things that should also be considered is the extra weight that the batteries carry for the truck. Like that's really important for us. We've realized that with the 20% reduced capacity, we actually would need 5 trucks to 4 of our current ones. And the weight also plays a role in how much you can actually transfer or transport on roads. And then the other piece, I mean, I would definitely echo the partnership and echo getting an understanding of the grid capacity and making sure that you have the required charging infrastructure for your fleet. But what I would like to add is just including driver feedback and integrating their insights into the preferences of your operations.
Right. Very important. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for sharing your experience, for giving those really good pieces of advice to all of those who are looking to transition but just don't know where to start. I believe this has been very helpful just to get an overview of two technologies. The rest of our program also offers more advice on other technologies, as I initially mentioned, on hydrogen and renewable diesel and compressed natural gas, renewable natural gas as well. So we will be sharing a recording of this webinar on our resource hub, and I will also be sharing a recording link with all of our participants today. The resource hub is also a space for you to find a lot of interesting informational links to reports, to tools. We've made a collection of some interesting articles that you could refer to, which will help you in making this transition and future-proofing your fleet. Please feel free to connect with us at Partisan Project Green, and we will be happy to answer your questions or guide you to the right resource. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.